Pfluger is representative of the best district in the entire system. Congressman, good morning.
Well, Craig, good morning, and good morning to everybody in Midland, Odessa, and the surrounding counties. What a beautiful day as we approach Labor Day, and doesn't it just make you just glad to be a Texan and thankful to be an American, to live in this great country and approach a holiday where I hope folks are going to be not only starting high school football, but also spending some time with friends and family. So good morning.
Congressman, you played football, I'll bet you, in San Angelo.
Well, I sure did, and we have some games coming up tonight. I know that Odessa Permian's playing Plano, and Midland Lee versus Euless Trinity, Midland High versus Southlake, Garden City versus Bryson, and Greenwood versus Childress. You're talking some big matchups. I know I didn't hit all of them, but those are some big matchups tonight. San Angelo Central plays in Abilene tonight.
And Adrian Michael Bondre, what about Kermit?
Kermit Yellow Jackets, the Golden Kermit Yellow Jackets.
Who do they play?
I hadn't checked their schedule, but I need to. But yeah, why not? Go and see the Golden Kermit Fighting Kermit Yellow Jackets. You know, Abilene's in 10 in the state, in top 10 in the top 10 of the state. So gonna be some Friday Night Lights. You gotta love it. West Texas for sure.
It is good. 7:40 now at KWEL AM 1070 and FM 107.1. On the somber side of things, Congressman, your thoughts about Minneapolis, the shootings, and the reaction from Democrats and the media. Of course, we have to ban guns, no prayer, and all that kind of thing. But what are your thoughts?
Well, it's horrific, and you know, having children myself and those listening, I mean, just the horrific act that happened there in Minneapolis should never happen anywhere. And you know, you really think about it, and I guess, you know, my reaction, a couple of things. Number one, the mayor saying that there's not room for prayer or thoughts. This is just so insensitive to everyone, and it doesn't just impact those there. It impacts many people who, whether it's that kind of tragedy or another kind of tragedy, turn to their faith and turn to the solace of knowing that our Lord and Savior really is the only one that can give us that peace and that, you know, we don't have the understanding, but that's why we turn to prayer. That's why we turn to faith. So very insensitive, another reason, and just another example of how out of touch folks can be at times. But you know, really think about the role of mental health providers, the role of those that really need at a time in our country where it seems like we have a surge in mental health problems. I want to say thank you to everyone who's associated with this type of work to get in early in schools and in a young child's life to help them through what is undoubtedly an epidemic of mental health issues. And I think that's really where my mind is right now, is how can we in Congress further this? President Trump has led on this in his first term. We're continuing to do things like telehealth and put resources into schools. There is a federal role for this, and we have been leading on it. But my heart just goes out, and my prayers go out to those families in Minnesota who are just reeling from this horrific incident.
And so everybody is coming up with thoughts what needs to be done and everything, but it comes down to mental illness, I believe, and taking away guns is not the answer.
Well, no, I mean it's not. You know, the schools need to be safe. Texas has made great strides in strengthening the security of our own schools here, but you know, overbearing laws only seem to put guns in the hands of those who don't need them, the criminals who wouldn't be able to pass a background check that is normal, but would still have access to those weapons, and that law-abiding citizens who are doing the right thing every single day would be the ones that would suffer. So that's not the answer. But again, I go back to mental health, I go back to security at schools, and this really has to be a statewide initiative. It has to be a local community that comes up with this. And what about the role of the family? You know, I mean, not to say that was the cause of this, because I'm not sure, but the role of the family, and I know we know that here in this area, is really important for raising kids. It doesn't prevent every tragedy, but it certainly helps our community in a massive way, and our country really needs to refocus on that.
We are at 7:44 now on KWEL AM 1070 and FM 107.1 with Congressman August Pfluger. Congressman, one of our great contributors is Keith Stretcher. He is the former city manager, interim city manager now in Odessa, former city manager in Midland.
Attorney.
And attorney, and also served on the appellate court in Eastland. And he's very concerned, and I realize that you're not in the Senate, but the Senate has approved only 5 judges since January, and they're stacking up, and we need these appointments. And the president says he's going to sue the Senate in federal court over the blue slip policy because it's stopping him from appointing district judges. But what can we do to get this process moving? Can you put the bug in our senators' ears, in other words?
Well, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. No, I'm not in the Senate, but we all have a vested interest in this moving quickly. Democrats, for 8 plus months now, have been resisting President Trump's nominees and have been resisting timely votes, whether it's ambassadors or cabinet positions or judges that are so important. My understanding is that when the Senate reconvenes next week, that they are going to make a move, not just for judges, but for any presidential appointments, to make this process even easier, that they're going to shorten the process because it's lawfare, it's you quote-unquote warfare. I mean, it's something that President Trump won 74 million votes. He won the popular vote, the electoral vote. The people spoke loud and clear. We need to see his people not only nominated, but then confirmed by the Senate. And I think that the Senate has had enough. I will put that bug in both Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz's ear, who both of them have led on this issue to get people approved and into their positions.
All right, good deal. Tell them we want this out in West Texas, and Keith Stretcher is leading the charge. And so thank you for listening to that from us. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump cracking down on crime. And, of course, people on the left are going crazy. Although the mayor of Washington now, Ms. Bowser, is kind of on board with it. But what are your thoughts?
Well, it's one of the things you see. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Not only is Bowser now saying, yes, we should have a task force or we should surge police officers, but also just in the news this morning, Gavin Newsom is forming his own task force in California. So President Trump is right. Crime is out of control. Whether it's at Union Station where they can't even run the railroad correctly, and they did have a murder in open daylight within recent months, or in the streets in Washington, D.C., where an intern for a congressman was murdered, or the rising crime throughout most blue cities. He's cracking down on it. He's making a difference. He's putting the National Guard in there, not to overreach on posse comitatus, but to send a message that these cities, these DAs, the local governance needs to get their act together because they're not enforcing the law, and that has led to a huge increase in violent crime in cities across America, and enough is enough. So, it's no surprise that Muriel Bowser looks at her city and goes, oh, wow, this is better. We actually are seeing crime go down, and people enjoy the streets of Washington, D.C., and so many other places I think are going to follow suit. But if you find, and we talked about this last time, Craig, if you find Democrats who are pushing back on this is why their party is in such a state of disarray, because they can't find they can't be morally straight and find answers that are just common sense. They have to be radical and tack towards the left, which they've done for years now.
If I'm in D.C. or Chicago, wherever, and the crime rate is so out of hand, I would be so thankful that it was being cracked down. I would thank Donald Trump or whoever else was doing it, but golly, people want to be safe in their own cities.
Well, you're right. The Trump derangement syndrome seems to overtake people who can't say thank you, but I think in their heart of hearts they know that he's doing the right thing. And so we thank him from here in West Texas for getting our country back on track. And my goodness, these cities should be the representative cities around the world of how to govern and how to be successful financially and morally, and they've gone so far astray. Thank you for Donald Trump's strength to get them back on the right track.
Now, if Muriel Bowser can come around, maybe the mayor of Chicago can come around too. And apparently, Chicago's next on the list. Do we need to be concerned? You talked about posse comitatus. Do we need to be concerned about federalizing, say, local police and whatever?
Well, no, and President Trump is well within his constitutional authority to do so. There is a line of what the National Guard troops can and cannot do, but having a presence there to make sure that we don't have, and it really comes down to rioting. It really comes down to what is free speech and what is not free speech, and the National Guard troops there to just enforce a sense of lawfulness, of law and order, so that, yes, people can speak out. You can go have your voice heard. You can protest. That is well within the First Amendment, but when you cross the line into the damage of property, the threat of violence, or actual violence and rioting, that is not protected speech. And having those extra bodies there that are there to enforce that sense of law and order is a huge help to these cities who obviously don't have the political will. I think the law enforcement officers there, because I've talked to officers like in New York City, they do have the ability, they just don't have the political backing. That's why this is important to do.
Do you feel safe personally living in D.C.?
You know, I got to tell you, after all the things that have happened over the past 5 or 6 years, a Democrat who was carjacked in a building very, very close to where I was living at that time, and you know, walking through the streets, you have to keep your head on a swivel, and I definitely feel a heightened sense of alertness, because you know that there's just, you know, you're just 1 second away from having a random event that could tragically affect people. So I'm really glad that President Trump is doing what he's doing.
Can you carry a gun in D.C.?
You can. They make it very difficult on you, but you absolutely can. There's training. Many congressmen have done that. And you know, you absolutely can. They just make it a lot more difficult. Craig, let me tell you, this is why it's great to live in Texas, because we have state legislators like Brooks Landgraf who go to Austin, Kevin Sparks who go to Austin and stand up for our rights. And I appreciate every single day what they do to make Texas the best place to live.
Any thoughts on, before we go, redistricting? Of course, we know what's going on in California, maybe Indiana, some other states following suit here. Do you think that's going to happen? Or what do you think does it? Will it go all the way to the Supreme Court? Well,
it likely will. And these other states, we have to remember that California and Illinois have gerrymandered to perfection. They have a vast majority of Democrats, well more than what the actual popular vote represents. You're talking 80% Democrats in California. 42 out of 50 seats in California are represented by Democrats, only 8 Republicans. So when you look at that, they have already gerrymandered. And what Texas has done is looked at the Hispanic voting blocks throughout the state and realized that they voted for Trump. And they have made the decision to redistrict here in order to better represent Trump voters, especially in the Rio Grande Valley. So my district will change. Don't worry. I will still have Midland and Odessa. I will still have Brownwood and San Angelo and Llano. But I will go into North Austin, which will have a few more Democrats. So we're going to need help in getting our message out there and making sure that we can continue to represent this great district. It is the best district, but we're going to have a little bit more east and more left-leaning population in the 11th Congressional District that will be 350-plus miles from Odessa to North Austin.
North Austin. Well, good luck with that. Congressman, we must run. Thanks for everything. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for your military service, serving as a full bird colonel. Thanks for everything. We appreciate you being along.
Well, thank you. And let me just highlight one thing for you. My team was selected as the best team, the best of constituent correspondence and outreach. And this is a competitive process. And I want to say thank you not only to Monica in Odessa and Corbett in Midland and Karen, who's the district director, but all of our team here throughout the district. This is a big award, an incredible award. We set out 6 years ago to be the best in constituent services, to always respond. That's not a political party response. That is a human need response. and we were awarded just recently with the Best of Constituent Services. So very proud of our team, and I have to say, that's not me, that's our team. We have a great team. We always want to answer the phone. We always want to follow up. So, Craig, you having us on this show every week allows us to highlight that and to make the pitch for if folks need help, to reach out to our office, to pfluger.house.gov, or to call the Midland and Odessa numbers. And people have done that, and now our office has been recognized. So very proud of what the team has done, because it is a team effort. So God bless. Have a great weekend. Spend time with friends and family. And thanks for having me on.
All right. Congressman August Pfluger,